I'm delighted to welcome the Samick Music learners to my class, which has the grand heading of Science and Creativity, but each of my classes that I'm going to be giving are actually about playing with science, and that's going to be my series. I will be taking you through a short PowerPoint of some of the theories which are behind performance science and how it is far from being an academic topic. It is very much integral to what we do and how we do what we do, whether it's in practice or whether it's in performance. So you will be hearing my voice through the PowerPoint, and I will be highlighting certain studies and certain models which I feel are particularly relevant to the other half, because this is going to be the class, to actually the resource. The resource side of Samick Music Learners is going to be supporting you in a very specific task. So these are kind of almost, it's the class which I'm going to be delivering now and through these PowerPoints. And then the other half of it will be in the resources, which I'm going to be, and the topic is going to be scales. Now, anybody who knows me well, particularly my students, will know I am absolutely passionate about scales. Passion and scales might seem like complete worlds apart, but I hope that in the practical sense, through this class of explaining in a science lens how science and creativity have a place playing with science in the practice room in the context of scales. So in that, I hope you will watch both of this and then of course the resource, which I will be in front of the clarinet and we'll be talking very specifically about how you can apply science and the creative lens in learning and feeling the benefits and being motivated, a very key word, in how and what is the reasoning for scales. So I will now embark, and you will hear my voice and the PowerPoints, and take you through a little short tour of some of these key elements which will then be taken into the practice room. In trying to convince, as I hope I will over the series of these lectures, how science has played such an important part in creativity in our lives as musicians, starting with Sternberg's Kriakic theory of human intelligence might seem pretty tough for some people, but let's just step away from the feeling that academia has no place in the practice or performance space. And we look actually beneath the layers and the fears that some might have. Analytical, creative, practical. This is a wonderful study, and I've chosen this study to set the scene in this whirlwind tour of what I will be taking you through, initially to plant the seeds of how science and creativity really do make a harmonious partnership. We then move on to motive. Now, motive very often gets lost in motivation. Motive is immensely powerful in terms of how we perceive our incentive, because sometimes the challenges of what might seem insurmountable problems, that is why there is a tangle there. Our sustainability and our determination comes from our motive. Is our motive in what we are striving to do from within ourselves, or is it from some external need for validation or meeting some external approval? This needs some serious investigation, because the motivation that will come from our motive and overcoming and being able to push ourselves through sometimes what might seem really difficult challenges. The reason to investigate motive cannot be really underestimated in terms of how it powers our resilience. And this moves me on to the next very, very important point. Very often we spend a lot of time thinking about the practical sides of playing. I've spoken about the cognitive, the mind, the thinking. So we've already spoken about investigation and planted that seed. There is also, of course, the practical side. We think about the fingers, we think about fluidity, we think about accuracy, we think about technicality. But often the force of human emotions does not really get explored and investigated until we're very close to the performance. And that's where performance anxieties sometimes take over. At this point, it's actually a bit late in the process. The force of human emotions and the psychological aspect needs again back to investigation. It all starts in the practice room. And that's where another wonderful thing about science is that it helps us to articulate what we are feeling and articulate how we do what we do. Resistance, I think, is something that we have all felt in some shape or form. It might be resistance to doing the scales, which of course is something that I will explore in a practical sense in the other resources talk, which I will be doing later. Resistance can be caused by many, many things. Often the resistance comes from a task that seems overwhelming. Resistance also might come from the fact that we can't find the motive for why we have to do what we do. Sometimes, and very often, I find, and certainly in my teaching, that setting agendas and goals fuel motivation. I will then use an extremely important word which I use very often for myself and in terms of sharing, is purpose. Purpose is a question word. What is our purpose? What is the purpose of doing? What is the purpose of a specific task that we're trying to achieve in practice? Agendas help us, particularly in resistance, in breaking down what might seem a very complex task. And let's not underestimate that the complexities of playing, of practice, of everything that we strive to do, whether it's in scales or studies or learning a piece. So setting an agenda and clear goals fuel motivation, which gives us a sense of purpose. Goals fuel purpose. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And whether those goals are not just the end goal, but the small goals that we have to go through in terms of the little stages, the building up of layers of learning, which enable us to feed back and know what we're doing, how we're doing what we're doing, and how we need to adapt how we're doing what we are doing to optimize the time that we are investing. So feedback is very, very powerful in efficiency. Feedback gives us a sense of self-reporting to know how we are doing what we're doing at a very moment we are doing it. It's often spoken by people to say, if I don't think about it, it will be fine. Well, I often, when I hear this, I think, well, would you do something really quite demanding with your eyes shut? I certainly wouldn't. So self-awareness and being aware of what we're doing when we're doing it, the self-reporting, is something that we really need to develop. And this gives us then an instruction, not destruction, the language of constructive self-reporting, which is carrying us through and helps enable to inform how we're doing, what we're doing, in a very purposeful, clear, articulate and analytical and practical way. And this is how the building bricks of learning, layer by layer, enables us to self-report, to make the small adjustments. If something that we did worked, that it felt secure, that we know what we did and how we did it, or the tiny adjustments need to be made. But the building bricks of layers is immensely powerful and informative, and makes great efficiency of our time. And in that, we also get to recognise our progress, and recognising progress again fuels our motivation, gives us validity, gives us a sense of self-belief, a sense of autonomy, which is part of what drives and gives us resilience in our practice. And in that way, this is how science in partnership with creativity makes that wonderful harmonious partnership in managing the multi-diverse steps, these complex tiny little steps that we might not realise but are seriously complex, and give us a sense of real accomplishment and confidence within each playing task. And in that, we can really strive to be our best, always in the pursuit of our excellence.